Tim Burton carved out a space for himself in Hollywood with a creative vision that's anything but ordinary. Surrounded by a familiar crew of actors, most notably Johnny Depp, he's built a body of work that's captivated audiences around the world. His distinct aesthetic has made him one of the most recognizable names in the industry. His signature gothic style isn't just a visual choice, it's a whole mood. From quirky stop-motion animations to bold reimaginings of classic stories, Tim Burton has crafted a cinematic universe that doesn't play by the usual Hollywood rules. It's dark, eccentric, and unmistakably his. But before all the big budget hits, Tim Burton was just a young animator, making little, short films and dreaming up oddball characters. So how did this outsider break out of a traditional animation studio and become a household name? To understand that, we need to rewind and take a closer look at where it all began. Timothy Walter Burton. Yeah, the Tim Burton was born on August 25th, 1958 in Burbank, California. From a young age, he had an undeniable passion for art. Growing up in the quiet suburbs of Los Angeles, Burton found inspiration in the stillness of his neighborhood and the solitude of his afternoons. It wasn't all sunshine. Instead, Burton was drawn to classic monster movies and the eerie charm of old-school horror. That mix of suburban calm and gothic obsession would become the foundation of his imagination. Even as a kid, his early drawings had a distinctive look, dark, offbeat, and full of personality. After high school, he took his talents to the California Institute of the Arts, where he studied animation. And it didn't take long for people to realize this guy was different. His student films, like the now iconic short Vincent, already showcased the darkly whimsical style that would come to define his career. In 1979, Burton got his foot in the door at Disney, joining the studio as an apprentice animator and character designer. He worked on films like The Fox and The Hound, 1981, but his style was never fit for the Disney mold. Still, he made an impression with short films like Vincent and Frankenweenie, giving the world its first glimpse into what would become the Tim Burton brand. These early projects weren't just quirky experiments, they laid the groundwork for a whole new kind of storytelling in Hollywood. So how did this misfit animator, whose work didn't quite match the Disney vibe, go on to become one of the most iconic directors of our time? Let's dig into it. After working on The Fox and The Hound, Disney basically told Tim Burton, "You're incredibly talented, but maybe not Disney material." Back then, animators at Disney had to pass what's known as style tests. Basically, your drawing style had to blend seamlessly into the studio's house look. The goal? To make it nearly impossible to tell which artist drew what. But Burton's art stuck out in the best way. His illustrations had too much personality, too much edge. He was like a fish out of water in Disney's carefully polished animation pipeline. Still, he didn't walk away from filmmaking, not even close. While he was still at Disney, Burton worked on personal passion projects that gave us a glimpse of the filmmaker he'd become. Moody characters, gothic settings, and a weirdly charming sense of humor. Yep, his fingerprints were all over them. One of those early shorts was Vincent, a stop-motion film narrated by Vincent Price himself. It was dark, poetic, and utterly original, proof that Burton had a voice unlike anyone else in the industry. Next came Frankenweenie, the story of a boy who brings his dead dog back to life, a heartfelt tribute to Frankenstein that would later become a full-length film in 2012. Despite these early wins, Burton and Disney eventually parted ways. His creative vision just didn't align with the studio's brand. But with Vincent and Frankenweenie in his portfolio, he was already starting to turn heads in Hollywood. One of those heads belonged to Paul Reubens, aka Pee-wee Herman, who handpicked Tim Burton to direct Pee-wee's Big Adventure in 1985. It was a quirky, low-budget film that no one expected to take off, and yet it did. The movie's surprise success officially put Tim Burton on the Hollywood map. With momentum building, he followed up with Beetlejuice in 1988, a cult classic that crushed the box office and proved that Tim Burton could turn his own ideas into mainstream hits. It was funny, weird, and completely original, but 1989 is when everything changed. That's when he directed Batman, starring Michael Keaton as the Caped Crusader and Jack Nicholson as a scene-stealing Joker. Batman was a massive hit. It didn't just redefine what a superhero movie could be, it showed the world that Tim Burton could handle major franchises without compromising his signature style. Gothic visuals, Psychological depth and blockbuster appeal, it all came together in a film that marked a turning point for comic book adaptation and for Tim Burton's career. In 1990, Tim Burton directed Edward Scissorhands, a film that blended gothic fantasy with emotional depth and poetic storytelling. It also marked the beginning of one of the most iconic collaborations in Hollywood, his partnership with Johnny Depp. Depp's performance as Edward, a gentle outcast with blades for hands, was praised by critics and helped cement his reputation as a serious actor. That film kicked off a long creative relationship that would lead to a string of memorable projects, including Ed Wood, Sleepy Hollow, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Sweeney Todd. But Johnny Depp wasn't the only major creative partner in Burton's career. Danny Elfman, former frontman of Oingo Boingo, became Burton's go-to composer, starting with Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Since then, Elfman has scored almost all of Burton's films, adding a musical signature that fits perfectly with his eerie, whimsical aesthetic. His work on Batman in 1989 redefined what a superhero score could sound like. That now iconic theme has been reused, remixed, and reimagined in countless DC projects, and many fans still consider it the definitive Batman soundtrack. With the success of Batman, Burton returned in 1992 to direct the sequel, Batman Returns. This time, Michelle Pfeiffer delivered a legendary performance as Catwoman, and Danny DeVito brought a grotesque, unforgettable version of the Penguin to life. Darker, moodier, and more stylized than the first, it was pure Burton, unapologetically so. Then, in 1993, Burton took a step back into the world of animation, this time as producer of The Nightmare Before Christmas, a stop-motion masterpiece directed by Henry Selick. While Selick handled direction, the story, characters, and aesthetic were all unmistakably Burton's. It quickly became a cult favorite and has since grown into a holiday classic, beloved by audiences of all ages. Burton continued to make waves with films like Ed Wood, his quirky biopic about one of Hollywood's most infamous directors, and the wildly stylized remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Each film further solidified his rep as one of the most imaginative and original voices in modern cinema. In 2005, he returned to stop motion with Corpse Bride, a dark romantic fantasy that proved once again that no one does gothic animation quite like Tim Burton. More recently, in 2019, he made the live-action Dumbo. In 2022, Tim Burton finally brought his vision of the Addams Family to life with Wednesday, the Netflix series that quickly became a global phenomenon. A longtime fan of Charles Addams' original work, Burton had always dreamed of putting his own spin on the iconic franchise. In fact, he was once considered to direct the classic 90s Addams Family films, but had to pass due to scheduling conflicts. He was busy working on Batman Returns and other projects at the time. So, when it was announced that Burton would helm the new Wednesday series, it was already seen as a stamp of quality. And he delivered. One of Burton's greatest strengths has always been casting, and his decision to choose Jenna Ortega as Wednesday Addams was spot on. Her performance gave the character a fresh new edge, capturing the dry, deadpan essence fans know and love, while exploring deeper layers of personality that hadn't been seen before. It resonated with longtime Addams Family fans and drew in a whole new generation in the process. Tim Burton masterfully balanced respect for the original comics and nods to the beloved 90s films, all while layering in his signature style. Even after decades in the business, Tim Burton still finds ways to surprise us, with Wednesday Season 2 premiering in August 2025 and Season 3 already confirmed. He's stepping confidently into a bold new phase of his career. Last year, he returned to one of his most iconic creations with Beetlejuice 2 2024, proving once again that his gothic touch still resonates with audiences today. And leading both projects is Jenna Ortega, who's quickly become a key figure in Burton's creative universe. Her performances have brought fresh energy to his storytelling, marking a generational shift while staying true to the essence of what makes a Tim Burton production so unmistakable. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment below and let us know what's your all-time favorite Tim Burton movie. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. See you next time.